Strategist now, Grahame Morris and Bruce Hawker, very good afternoon to you. I want to go to another Royal Commission, though, that's coming, and this is the one on aged care. Just to get your political take on this, we've seen Scott Morrison in the few weeks he's been there, Grahame, scrap the plans to make people work to 70 before they can access the age pension. Now this Royal Commission on aged care, what does that tell you? Is he chasing that grey vote?
I don't think there's any doubt about that, but why now? Is he's getting ahead of a Four Corners program tonight. I'm not a great fan of Four Corners, but 2 or 3 times a year they come up with a program that's got credible grunt. And I suspect tonight is one of those. The Prime Minister sensibly has got in ahead of that and has looked at the issues across the sector. But you've got to be a bit careful here because there's a lot of for-profit and not-for-profit people and people in this sector who are absolutely magnificent. I know even from my dad's day, just fantastic people in what they did for him. But, every now and again the sector needs looking at, and I suspect it's time for the aged care sector, and the PM's probably got it right, not just for the elderly, but their kids and their grandkids sometimes are a bit concerned as to how the aged people are being treated.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce, whether it's simply because of a Four Corners program or whether it's because of new government data that the PM points to about more at-risk cases and so on, bottom line is most people are going to welcome the idea of having a good look at this sector.
I think that's true, and it's a very important sector because it's where our parents and where we eventually end up. In the main, and it should receive the sort of scrutiny that the banking sector is receiving. It's just as important to the lives as people as the sort of revelations that we're receiving there. I do query, though, the timing of it. You'll see in this program tonight that the minister responsible kept saying that there was no need for a Royal Commission, and suddenly there is a Royal Commission. So I think that points to a knee-jerk reaction by the government.
Bruce, do you have a little bit of sympathy there for Ken Wyatt? I mean, he's part of a government that was 3 weeks ago, resisting a Royal Commission.
Yeah, I do.
And he is obviously running for life. Suddenly, 3 weeks later, much has changed.
I thought he put on a really brave face yesterday in the face of the blanket rejection of the idiotic notion that he seemed to be thinking had to be batted away.
He totally tried to explain why there'd been a change of position.
But he's the wrong bloke to pick on. I know Ken Wyatt, and I know what he's been doing. And out of all the people in the parliament you might pick on, he's the one where his heart, both in aged care and in Indigenous Australians, is way in front of the mouth of some of the other politicians.
He's a widely respected.
I think that's absolutely true.
Member of Parliament.
Absolutely true. And you have to look to the Prime Minister, who is Treasurer, who's basically cut $3 billion out of the aged care sector, to query how serious he's been about it in the past. Yeah, well, it doesn't really seem to get borne out by the budget figures.
OK, well, let's just... and that point's been made. Look, what's going on in the New South Wales Liberal Party, Grahame? Ann Sudmalis is heading for the exit. She's had enough, not because of the shenanigans here in Canberra, but shenanigans in her own backyard by the sound of it.
Yeah, look, it's a pity she's going. Then again, it's a lovely seat for somebody else, all the way...
Nice part of the world.
Nowra, Kiama, Bateman's Bay, all those beaches down on the south coast is a fantastic seat, even if it is a marginal seat.
A female candidate?
Look, I'm sorry to see her... I'm sorry to see her go, but it's... What?
A female candidate.
Bruce is asking whether a female candidate might get up. The hot money right now...
I don't care, just so long as it's the best candidate. It is a nice seat, but, people are saying, well, people should have more power, somebody should fix this. I used to be a deputy federal director. They haven't got a lot of power at a branch level, but the state directors do. And if a state director, and I was a state director, if a state director and the state president turn up at a branch, they have enormous authority. Not so much power, but authority. And in the end, if it's, a complete mess, you just disband the branch. But what is the number one job of a politician? The first job is to get the numbers in your branches on the ground. And it looks as if Anne had some very, very difficult people to deal with, but the numbers started to slip. Now,
I mean, she's obviously saying there's been branch stacking and that's what's made her life difficult. Look,
Yeah.
others
Well, then you
otherwise.
reverse stack and get more people in the other side.
Well, that's called
Maybe,
counter-stack.
maybe.
You know, look, these are things
look,
which... These things do afflict the major parties, David. The Labor Party's had it, but they do put in place measures to try to make sure that those sorts of problems don't happen. You know, and everyone poo-poos the idea of quotas, everyone from the Liberal side anyway, but, you know, maybe there's a real case for quotas on the Liberal pre-selection processes, not as an ongoing thing, but to kick-start, you know, a more enhanced involvement of women in the political process. And it certainly worked for the Labor Party, and I think
And
maybe...
just on that, I don't think they're going to go down the path of quotas, but let me just recap what the Prime Minister said in a statement in response to Ann Sudmalis. And this is quite interesting because we've heard a lot of these sort of complaints in recent weeks about bullying and so on. He has announced that he's now asked the federal director of the party, who's Andrew Hurst, to work with the federal executive of the party to take steps to ensure there is a rigorous and confidential process to deal with concerns and complaints from party members, including members of Parliament. This is a bit of a no-brainer, isn't it, Graham, to have some sort of confidential process to deal with complaints? I mean, it's pretty much what every corporate...
but not at the federal executive level. It should be the state executive level. That's where the power is for branches. The federal executive has no power at the branch level. And if they take power, just imagine every second lunatic who is upset at some decision at a branch level is going to send it off to federal executive. You're just going to have...
But if it's at a state level, then at least have some
state level, yes,
standardised process across the state divisions that says,
too right,
if you've got a complaint, here's how it's going to be dealt with, it's going to be confidential, it's going to be independent.
Too right. But if a state director and a state president has any guts at the moment, they can do it already.
Yeah. Bruce, how does it work in the Labor Party? I mean, there must be complaints. You know, I'm not talking about you know, gender-based bullying necessarily, but people who have complaints that they've been, you know, that something's gone wrong. How are they dealt with? Well,
in cases like this, there actually is a tribunal that's been established within the Labor Party, which is overseen by a retired judge, to oversee issues of that nature and other issues, questions about eligibility or other legal aspects to a person's candidature or membership of the party. So we actually have a legal process that operates within the party to ensure that there are proper processes for investigation and for resolution by people who are legally qualified. You see, what we're seeing here are the sorts of problems that Labor's had to deal with in the past through the wrongdoing of members, and they've responded, not always immediately to the issue, but they've responded and they've got a process in place. We're seeing it with women, we're seeing it now with these with tribunals and other processes for hearing complaints. That's what we need to do, I think, across the board to make sure that the major parties are credible and rigorous in the way in which they go about dealing with these things. Otherwise, we're going to get to the situation where, you know, the major parties are going to be constantly under threat from minor and marginal interests, and that's not a really good thing for the political process.
Well, let's turn to Wentworth. I'm keen for both your thoughts now that we have a better lay of the land of who's running. Kerryn Phelps is an independent. Dave Sharma for the Liberal Party was pre-selected Thursday night. Tim Murray is the Labor candidate. Bruce, let me get your thoughts at the moment. Now that we can see who's in the field, how do you see this going? It's a critical by-election for Scott Morrison.
Yeah, look, this is a by-election which could actually get very interesting now that Kerryn Phelps has thrown a hat in the ring, because you're really getting a three-way contest, and there are, even though this should be an absolutely blue ribbon Liberal seat, sometimes people even in blue ribbon seats, like we saw in Queensland in 1998, I think it was, turning around and voting members out of blue ribbon seats. So I think this could actually be an interesting contest. See, Labor will get a slice of the vote. Phelps will get a significant slice of the vote. Labor, if it gets behind Phelps, could bump her into that role. If she gets behind Labor, there's a potential for her to...
They'll do a preference swap, won't they?
Well, you would think so, although potentially she will say, oh, I'll just keep the, issue a double-sided how to vote card, or I will leave it open to you to decide who you're going to give your next preference to. I think politically she's probably a bit more Labor's way now these days than Liberal, but that's essentially where she could go with that. So it could get very interesting and very close. And as I said before, in Tim Murray, Labor's got a good candidate who is in tune with that electorate. You know, he's a businessman.
He may struggle to get a bit of airtime through this campaign. I mean, good luck to him, but a lot of the focus will be on Kerryn Phelps and Dave Sharma. Graham, how do you see the contest shaping up?
That, you know, 6 months out from a general election, the Labor Party would have to run third for Kerryn Phelps to win. Now, herself in the first 48 hours to the left of Bill Shorten, so she wants to pick up the ratbag left, the Greens, the sort of lesbian gay group. That gives her base. But then she's got to pull some of the centre off the Labor Party and some of the centre off the Liberal Party to run second and win on Labor Party preferences. That's possible. I think now that she's in the field, it is much, much closer. But it means the Labor Party has to have a dreadful result.
Do you think, though, when we look at Wentworth, I mean, this sort of seat is going to be socially progressive compared to the rest of the country on things like, gay and lesbian rights, having more women in Parliament, even climate change, for example. These could be difficult areas for Scott Morrison, given the neg is now dead, apparently, given he's running a male candidate there and Dave Sharma, impressive, yes, but how do you think, I mean, Kerryn Phelps, yes, you can say there are issues to the left, but they might play well there in Wentworth.
Yeah, look, I agree. And that is why she's a difficult customer. But it is still a seat of 17%. There are still a lot of people there who would not like to see the instability of the government losing its numbers and shifting things towards a Bill Shorten government.
Would you have Malcolm Turnbull come and campaign with Dave Sharma?
I'd have anyone who thinks they can win a vote coming in to help Dave Sharma. And I would, actually. Because you know damn well that's fixed the front pages for tomorrow with the former PM there. And Sharma is actually a good man. I hope he gets there. But this could be close.
Well, and of course we just might get Turnbull's son coming in and campaigning for the Labor candidate, who he's already endorsed as being a very solid financial advisor. So it's a very interesting campaign, and you're right about the social progressiveness of that electorate. It is socially progressive, fiscally conservative. It'll be very interesting because Scott Morrison's issues really don't resonate particularly well right now with a lot of what's been discussed in Wentworth and in the broader community. And, I'm talking about climate change, talking about women in politics and so forth. It's not an easy mix and match for him right now. And the more that this goes on, the closer we get to the election, the harder it gets them to claw back. Yeah.
Yeah, look, there are, however, economic, when we see economic growth figures, jobs figures, it's, economic management case that Scott Morrison can make that probably will resonate in an electorate like that, maybe more than others. We'll see. Anyway, we better go. It'll be an interesting one to watch over the coming weeks. Bruce, Graham, good to talk to you. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
We're going to take a quick break and back with the last word.